Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, April 17th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. This podcast covers the national champions. That actually kind of hurt. All right, great show for you today. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Last time we saw you on Tuesday, Bill teased that he had a story coming out that afternoon. It was going to be about Brock Boyd, and was it ever? So we will get to that in detail. Brian Hartline has a Texas-sized spatula out, as those of you who can see the title knew that. Myself, I've been on the road the last 2 days. I'm back, bleary-eyed, but ready to roll. Excuse me. And the people in the car with me were very thankful, because I drove the whole way back, and it was long and dark and windy roads, which make you white knuckle. Mando. Excuse me. It is whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body. You know what I mean, the nooks and the crannies. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was misdiagnosed and mistreated. Clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. All right. How about a couple sweet smelling guys here? The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Gentlemen, I just shared this with the fans, but last we chatted, Bill was teasing an afternoon story, and the roller coaster rode from there. It was going to be about Brock Boyd, and then Brock Boyd's commitment to schedule his recruitment got really fast. Bill, bring us up to speed on Brock Boyd, the intrigue surrounding him, the recruiting process, how he flipped from another Texas school, and then Mark, as he is wont to do, is going to take you into the film room and let you know exactly what Ohio State is getting.
Well, he was the guy I was talking about on Tuesday. I said I had a story coming up on him, and he is a wide receiver from South Lake Carroll, and he, as you mentioned, Dan, did commit to the Buckeyes, flipped his commitment from TCU. And it's interesting, I talked to him quite a while the night before. That would have been on Monday night. Talked to him for quite a while. We talked about everything from my first teaching job in the great state of Texas to him being committed to TCU, but highly interested in Ohio State. And we talked about all the difference between football in Ohio and the football in Texas, and just all kinds of stuff. It was really a great conversation. And then, of course, he announced his commitment on early Tuesday afternoon. I think, if I remember right, it was right around noon. But anyway, he's a 6'2", 183 pounds. He was during last season about 6'1", 165, but he's now 6'2", 183. If you've seen the video he put on X, you'll be impressed. I mean, he's really athletic, good speed. Really, it was, as he told me on Monday night, it was all a matter of 2 schools. He had been committed to Texas A&M since July 29th. But Ohio State and Brian Hartline continued to recruit him, and he was a priority for Ohio State. Brian Hartline, he's had his sights set on adding 2 more receivers to the class, and Caden Dixon Wyatt and Brock Boyd are the guys, and he's got one of the 2 now, and I tend to like their chances of getting the other one too. But he said, it was always going to be staying with TCU and then perhaps flipping to Ohio State, which he did.
He goes to South Lake Carroll, like Bill mentioned. They lost in the state championship game. Bill will tell you a little bit about how that has affected him, or affected that school this spring. But lots of people from there. People have heard of a quarterback pipeline, as it were. You got your Greg McElroy's, your Chase Daniels, and of course, Quinn Ewers. All right, Mark, you have seen all of the three receivers Bill has kind of discussed here in some way. Chris Henry Jr., is in the class. Caden Dixon-White, who they want in the class, and Brock Boyd, who is in the class. Take it away.
Well, you know me, I don't go by the national rankings because I'm not washed in national players, but when they pop up on my radar, I put them in blindly, and oh, wow. Like, I did not expect what we were about to see from Brock Boyd. The speed is what's going to jump off the tape. When I make a film, Dan wants it to be about 2 minutes, and I think that's due to people's attention spans.
It is.
Well, all of his plays are touchdowns, and they're almost all plays where he's going to get behind a secondary. And the first thought that came to my mind is, what defensive coordinators are watching film every week and not noticing that this kid is going to the house on every play? I mean, he might have 18, 20 touchdowns. It's a repetitive theme. He's going to blow right by a safety here who can't even turn and run with him and loses. It's like either the competition is terrible, which we know it's not at South Lake Carroll. We know that is not the story.
No.
He literally just blows this competition up with pure speed. Now, the route running's there. The blocking is there. There's a nice, long highlight film on Huddle. But, when you're trying to put the best plays in and the kid's got 20 touchdowns, how do you not put the 20 touchdowns in? And, so it almost – this film is unbelievably good, but it doesn't even do him justice because his route running and his subtleness and his, little sneaky moves he does during the route and the way he sits down, he's got a lot of stuff to him, to make him this receiver. So, when you say committed to TCU, you're like, oh, maybe he wasn't a big time, player. He didn't have the Alabama off or whatever. Wrong. This kid can move. I mean, and usually the top guys have the most speed. I'm still looking for a guy on film that's run him down. So, yeah, I didn't do him justice with all the blocking and the jets and bubbles and hitches, but there's 20 freaking touchdowns right there you can watch where that's all you need.
And like Mark said, the defensive coordinators against South Lake Carroll, if people saw the salaries of what Texas high school coaches make, they'd be impressed. And like you said, South Lake Carroll is elite high school football. So there's no issue with competition. Bill, it's so elite, they're taking some time off.
Yeah, interesting. They went to the state championship game. They did not win a state championship game, but they went to the state championship game in Texas. And I asked Brock about, have you guys started spring football yet? He said, no, we haven't. I said, that's impossible. Every big school in the state of Texas does spring football. He said that they, this year, are not doing spring football because they played, I think he said, 18 games this season. That's more than Ohio State played, I think, en route to their national championship. So because of how many games they played, they've got guys still recovering from a long season and beat up still and so on and so forth. They're not doing spring football this year, which is kind of interesting. And another, I thought, interesting thing is, and I like this a lot, he comes from a family of football people. His dad is on the football staff at South Lake Carroll. He's one of the coaches at South Lake Carroll High School. So he has that also going for him. And he and I talked about it. I've coached my kids, and I was a high school coach and all. And he said, man, it can be tough playing for your dad sometimes. It's great, but it can also be tough. Your dad can be tough on you. And I said, yeah, I understand completely.
It's funny you say that as this guy posts Darren spelled the right way because that's my son's name. And I'm just thinking back, man, I was much nicer to my second kid. Go ahead, Mark.
I see we have here about his catching ability. He does high point the ball. He does catch it in traffic. He does go up in a crowd and bring it down. Down around the goal line, they use him on fade balls. And then the other question is, who did I compare him to? When we do the article, we always try to give out comps. You try to give out Ohio State comparable comps. Boy, I had to go back a little ways. And does anyone remember Anthony Gonzalez, the speedster?
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland kid.
Yeah. So, he's kind of got that speed. You could throw out a Dane Sanzenbacher name and stuff like that. But that's the ballpark you're playing with him. you don't want to throw out the Cooper Cups and Edelmans, but if he got to the NFL, that would be who he'd have to be. Like the route runner that does have this over the top speed that just kind of blows you away when you watch that many times against that competition, just blowing by people. I like that Devin Smith. He was a deep ball, go get it type guy with some speed. Yeah.
Devin Smith was almost a one-trick pony. Oh, man, Doug Donnelly. I tell you what, I say this every time his name comes up. On the premium show, I'll tell a story about Doug Donnelly that involves Las Vegas, a green Hummer vehicle, and a champagne room. But I digress. Bill, let's get to another hot topic, and that is transfers. We will come back to recruiting, but people love the transfer portal, and they want them at defensive tackle. So I look. Beau Atkinson is the latest guy to express interest in Ohio State. Not necessarily your classic defensive tackle, but he's leaving Team Belichick and heading for supposedly greener pastures. Can you tell us about Beau Atkinson and what you think of him?
Yeah, he is in the transfer portal, played for North Carolina, and played well. He is a defensive end, 6'6", 260 pounds. And he is going, as he told me last night, and I had this story on our site late yesterday afternoon, he's going to make an official visit to Ohio State. He said that he has spoken with Larry Johnson, and he is definitely interested in Ohio State. Larry Johnson wants him to make a visit to Ohio State. That's going to happen. He didn't know as of yesterday exactly when that visit will be. He said it could be as soon as this weekend. If not, it will be next week sometime. He has got 2 visits in mind right now, even though a lot of schools have reached out, obviously. He's got 2 visits in mind, Ohio State and Georgia at this point. I'm not saying that'll be his only visits, but that's who he has in mind right now. And one of them absolutely will be Ohio State. He had 11 sacks in the last 2 seasons, 29 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, I believe it was, this past season. Matter of really, with the coaching change and all that, he is the culture he doesn't feel really fits his culture anymore at North Carolina, and that's big for him. He emphasized to me that he is a very stout Christian kid, as he put it, and really impressed with what he has heard and seen of what Ohio State has done on that front. So Ohio State has that going for him too. Obviously, he is impressed with the culture overall at Ohio State, and he is impressed with Larry Johnson and the history of defensive ends at Ohio State. So that'll be big. He's a guy that Ohio State would like to add to this class. Defensive tackle, I think Ryan Day, talked about that's the big need. But when a guy like Beau Atkinson comes available and is interested in your school, and you do need defensive line help overall, you look into that strongly.
That's a great point. There are just not enough great defensive linemen out there that you turn one away. We've seen the need for depth, etc. All right, we've got a lot of good questions here, and I'm just going to start ripping them off. Bill, have you heard anything about Demarion Thomas by any chance in the portal at this point?
I have, actually. I talked to good question, good timing on the question of that.
Robbie Howard, hook me up. Go ahead.
I talked to Demarion last night, as a matter of fact. He is a defensive tackle from Vanderbilt. He's about 6'3", 330 from Vanderbilt. Go. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but Beau Atkinson has 2 seasons of eligibility left, so that would be huge.
I like that.
But as far as Demarion Thomas, he is definitely interested in Ohio State, but Ohio State has not yet reached out to him as of last night. He said if they do, he will be interested.
My guess is they do, but we will check on that. I heard the 330 there, and I thought to myself, someone who could draw a double team. All right. What was the Peter Glitis one, Mark? Want to help me out there?
Yeah, he's the offensive tackle from Bishop Watterson. When we have talked about like the Big Five in the class of 2026, we've thrown around some other names that are on the edge. Peter Glitis, there's Sanchez up at Sandusky Perkins. There's a few other kids that you probably want to get to camp this summer just to kick the tires. I know we've talked about Landry Breed. Peter Glitis is the big Massive. Kind of reminds you of the Ben Roebuck from St. Ed's who went to Michigan. Just a road grader in there. Maybe doesn't bend as well and doesn't have the athletic background of the basketball players like Sam Greer and Adam Guthrie, the elite couple tackles in this class. But he's a kid that he's young enough where he's still a piece of clay, if that makes any sense, where, you kind of look at these linemen always as that, the puppy dog with the big paws that's not finished yet. And Pete falls into that. I said this about a few kids that like even favor a key. There's meat left on the bone for development. If Pete did a good job of, a little more flexible, got his body a little more leaned out, he could show up at camp and really turn some heads. And as he goes on visits, I follow him on Twitter. It seems like he's picking up offers when he shows up and people see him in person because he has that legitimate, that awe-inspiring size when you see him in person.
All right, I'm going to put this up here. I want both of you guys to think about it, and we're going to come back and answer it. But right now, I need to tell you about Cornbread Hemp. Bill would not be happy unless I did. One of our great sponsors, America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. It's your healthy happy hour. People are turning away from the booze, from the brown liquor, as it were, and going for a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. Proudly grown in Kentucky, 1-to-1 THC to CBD ratio, 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose. Good Lord. No harsh solvents, no synthetic ingredients. So this is some good stuff. Like I said, 100% legal, so don't worry your pretty little heart. As a special offer for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you get 30% off your first order. Just visit Cornbread Hemp /Bucknuts and use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. 30% off your first order. Cheers to a happier, healthy hour. All right, Darren Dorsey, of course. Darren spelled the right way. Good morning. Mark, I would like you to take this first. How do you evaluate a young running back like Beau Jackson on his blocking? Because that is a factor most people forget. I think that's come because people are seeing how good Beau Jackson looked in the spring game and are thinking this dude's going to get on the field. Can he block? It's usually the last component for a running back. Trey Henderson showed up here a good blocker, left a great blocker. Your thoughts on Beau Jackson? You think he can handle it?
Well, we answered this like a week ago. I remember talking about it, where high school teams do not run 5-man protections or slide protections where the running back's responsible for the end or picking up the blitz. And you just don't see that skill developed in high school. If you're lucky, you'll have a highlight tape where a running back goes and pops a couple players and you see him be physical and you see him put his nose on someone, and that alerts you that, this kid may have some qualities to be a pass blocker. But it's not until the dog days of camp where you've sent linebacker after linebacker at him and battle tested him before you know what you have in pass protection. And even then, you do not know until probably he's in a game and the bullets are firing. So to properly evaluate that, at least my feeling is you really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of backs that you think have the ability, but when they get in the game and the bullets are flying, that's an art form to be able to stick your nose at someone who's coming that hard with that type of adrenaline intensity, I will say. But he has the size. He does appear to be a physical player. It just would be a matter of the will and the desire is usually what it comes down to. And it's a manly thing. I know Dan's shaking his head. Sticking your head in there at someone running that fast is a business decision, and not all kids are prepared to make that business decision. And Henderson and Zeke Elliott are the two that really earned some respect with the way they did that. And I mean, would they do it 20, 30 times in college and they were a legend to go into the NFL for it? So it doesn't take much to be one of the leading pass blockers as a running back.
You're protecting a millionaire these days, by the way, and you do not want him to go down. I remember Gronkowski's brother playing fullback for the Cowboys, and literally so clueless that Romo's collarbone took it at about 100 miles an hour, and it was over with. If you can't do that, you cannot be on the field. There have been times when guys haven't played here, and we've speculated on why, and you can't really. It's mercurial because you can't see it, and you'll hear you can't block, can't keep him in, can't be in there on third down, etc. So that is a huge factor, and like Mark said, it can become an advantage. It can become a strength. Go look at some of the draft coverage of Travion Henderson. Most of the good guys will mention how good of a blocker he was. And we all know Quinshon Judkins was also excellent at that. It's kind of an underrated little strength of those two. And it is really kind of being willing to put your face in the fan. I'll say this. If you do it early, it's good. Guys will start to go around you a little bit. Zeke would pop dudes early, and they would start to make business decisions on defense. So that was some good fun back then. All right. Zeke was the best blocker.
We need an update. We need an update for your son. I see the question.
What was the question?
Let's digress. Dan Shepard.
My son has not found a new school yet. He has. We believe it's not for a lack of looking or driving. We have. He was very fortunate to have a lot of interest in the transfer portal from a lot of D2s and D3s, no D1s, which is okay. He's got it down to a few. He still has to see if he gets into one school. He's like I said, he has a grad year he gets to play with. So we are trading basketball for grades here. Good student, but the hoops get you to that. You know what I'm saying? I always want to ante up a little bit. So we should have an announcement here shortly. I know everyone's hanging on. I'm going to use this to sell subscriptions. Not at all. But yeah, like I've been on the road and it's been fun, but I do think I may have taken my last college visit, provided my son, who's going to be a freshman in college last year, doesn't hit the portal, which is a ridiculous concept to even think about. So I think we're gonna go with that. All right. We've done all those guys. Let's talk about Bill. This guy, Felix Ojo, offensive lineman. Ohio State's been mentioned prominently. Are you surprised, like Terry Slusher is, that Felix Ojo is visiting Colorado, Bill?
Yes and no. I mean, the way things are these days, I don't know that much of anything surprises me anymore as far as visits and all that type of thing. And I'm not saying that it's a money thing, but there's money in visits. And again, I'm not saying that's about getting paid to make a visit or anything else. I'm just saying that's a fact that there is money in making visits, and there can be money after you make the visit, depending on the school, what they're willing to give you. So if you have an interest, it's not surprising you check someone out. And let's face it, Deion Sanders has done a pretty good job recruiting overall and bringing kids in. So in that respect, no, I'm not shocked, but that wasn't really on his scorecard as a prominent school. So in that way, I guess it is a little surprising. I still think in the end, that Ohio State is going to be one of the finalists along with Texas, and we'll see what happens. He has his official visit, by the way, if you don't know, to Ohio State is the weekend of May 30th. To June 1st. So, and Texas, the weekend of June 13th to 15th. So we'll see what happens as Felix goes through the process.
I'll say this. I thought Jordan Seaton would be in the portal at this point. He's not. So they did a better job with him than I expected. So, Deion's here to stay, it looks like, man. I think a lot of people thought it might have been like a flash in the pan and his kid being there and stuff, but it looks like he's here to stay. Ask about Darren, then we need to know about DJ. I don't think D stands for Darren. Mark doesn't have that kind of foresight. But how is your son's leg? I know you got him back throwing again, which is great to hear.
Yeah, he had the fractured femur in the ACL first play of the freshman year. Appreciate you asking. It's nice to digress. No setbacks. He's playing some 7-on-7 football, so you can stand there and get the ball off. Tell you what, that 7-on-7 is a lot of fun. Chance to meet a lot of great players. He's rubbing elbows with Glenville and St. Ed's and Archbishop Hoban players. And, some of these kids, I'm actually scouting at his games because they're pretty good. But it's funny to see someone come back from this type of injury. Just as an aside, I know a lot of people have been through these long rehabs, and to watch the body rebuild itself and start from a place where you think you're never going to be healthy again. And he was really upset because he thought he'd never be the same person again. His squat and bench maxes and his weight are all up through the roof, and I don't even think he can believe, because puberty is a great thing when it hits you at about 15 years old. So
hormones,
yeah, all that stuff's kicking in for him, and I think the worst is in the rearview mirror, knock on wood.
facial hair, they really start to smell even worse. It's awesome. At least you only have one kid like that. You'll have two, and holy cow, the ride home from football practice can be literally an Ace Ventura situation. You know what I'm saying? You got to have your head out the window. All right.
I'm gonna get some Mando. How about that?
There you go. See, it all comes together in the end. It's like a Seinfeld episode.
There we go.
Way to wrap it up. Bill, who's visiting? Who's committing? Who's transferring? This time on Tuesday, you were holding on to one that would turn out to be super hot. If you were to let us know what you would be looking for in the next 24 to 72 hours, what would you say?
Well, I think at this point, you got to be thinking transfer portal. I'll be watching certainly Beau Atkinson to see exactly when he's going to make his visit and what happens with that visit. I think that's huge. And then anybody else, like we talked about Demarion Thomas, that if Ohio State comes calling, he wants to visit, or he's least interested. And we'll see who else. I think that's the main thing I'm looking at the next few days of, who does Ohio State go after from the portal?
I'll tell you this, and we'll leave it with this. Ryan Day would not have said that out loud if he didn't plan to come through on it, because they don't like to give you personnel type chatter. If they say they're going after a defensive tackle, my guess is you're going to have a big old defensive tackle in here at some point, just a matter of who and when. We appreciate these guys stopping by. Hopefully you guys could handle the varied questions. We went to family, we went local, so we appreciate that. Everyone have a good one. Have a good one. Letters of Buck.